Hello and welcome to The Price of Music, brought to you by Music Ally, the show that's fascinated by the fun and games and finances of the music world, as explained each week by me, Steve Lamack, and him, Stuart Dredge. And what we're going to answer some of your questions this week. Thank you very much to everyone who's been in touch. We'll turn our hands to that in just a second. But first, as we promised last week, can we return to the announcements which came from the Department for Culture, Media and Sports about, referencing some new streaming reforms. And in fact, when the announcement finally came, it was while we were on air last week, and we'd speculated about what might be included in this new report. And in fact, a lot of the points that your contacts had predicted did appear, didn't they, Stuart? But run us through what was exactly unveiled and what has the reaction been from the interested parties. By the way, for everyone looking forward to Stuart's big number, this story will include Stuart Dredge's big number for this week. So what did they announce, and how have people reacted?
Okay, yeah, I was going to run a lap of honour for not getting anything drastically wrong. I've been celebrating for days. So basically, it's a package of measures that the labels say are going to help put more money in the pockets of musicians, including artists and songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
It includes some stuff that's been announced before and some that's new. So one of the things that's happened is it's about legacy artists. So we're thinking here of artists who got signed to deals before 2000. That's kind of a lot of the focus here. So people who are on deals before the streaming era that maybe don't cover streaming or have terrible terms. So one thing that's happened is the major labels are going to disregard unrecouped advances. So if you were paid in advance back in the day and you haven't earned it back, they're not going to wipe it. They're not going to get rid of it. They're just going to ignore it when it comes to streaming royalties. So you will get paid.
Right.
So what's happened there is some people who haven't recouped haven't received any streaming royalties. It's being sucked up by the debt, and that's going to change. Now, this was happening already. All three major labels announced plans to do this a couple of years ago. So this is kind of an existing thing, but they're committing to it. And we should say that there are some labels, Beggars Group is a good example, who actually wipe balances. They've been doing that for a long time. If you were signed to Beggars before 2000 and you're unrecouped, you get your balance wiped. So labels can still do more than this, but it's like a minimum commitment.
Right.
If an artist feels your deal's unfair, like if you signed your deal a long time ago and you're like, hang on a minute, I'm getting absolutely nothing for streaming royalties, even if they do pay me, you can ask for a renegotiation. You can go back and say, I'd like to renegotiate. This is unfair. And what's happened is labels are promised to respond within 60 days to your request. So no guarantee they will renegotiate or give you a better rate, but they will respond. They won't ignore it. So that's a commitment. And they're also going to give these legacy artists help to grow their streaming audience. So they're going to help with marketing, help with the management catalog. So if you're an artist of a certain vintage, I think it's all pre-2000 signed, then your label will help you to, in theory, grow your streams, grow your listeners, which then will grow your money.
Right.
So those are the three artist things. They're also going to pay we talked about this, they're going to pay songwriters 75 quid per DM plus expenses if they come to like a writing session. So often if a major label's got an artist, they'll bring in songwriters to do some writing for them. And it turns out often you don't get paid for that time. You get paid royalties for the songs you write, but you don't get paid for the time. And that's changing. And they've promised that money won't be taken out of the artists. So if you're an artist who's having songwriters brought in to work with you, you're not suddenly paying them a per DM out of your share of the royalties.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So that's good. And then finally, session fees are increasing for pop and classical musicians. But this was happening, I think it was agreed last year, and it's kind of just restating something that's already happening. Right. So those are the 5 things, and all of them will put more money into the pockets. And here's the big number. According to the labels, it could mean tens of millions of pounds in new investment to support creators by 2030. And this is where the arguments start.
Okay. All right. So there doesn't seem to be a lot for contemporary artists in this. As you say, there's a lot possibly for legacy artists. What has the reaction been then? When you say this is where the arguments start, who's already come out fighting?
Yeah, so what happened was this was announced, and all the label bodies, BPI and AIM, and the Council of Music Makers, which is kind of the musicians' representative, they all came out and they all said we welcome this. There was an announcement from the government with the government quotes, and these quotes saying it's good. But the Council of Music Makers, so this is the body, they include the Musicians' Union, the MMF, the Managers' Body, They include Featured Artists Coalition, producers like the people representing musicians and producers. They have since come out and said, yeah, actually, we're not happy with this. This is the bare minimum. And the reason for that is, so if you remember 4 years ago, we had this big streaming inquiry in the UK, which had a parliamentary inquiry. People gave evidence. Then there was a report. And this report recommended, and the quote was, a complete reset of the streaming economy and the way musicians get paid. And it gave these recommendations that were included equitable remuneration, where streaming royalties get divided more evenly between artists and labels before they get split up. It recommended a right to recapture your work. I think it was 20 years after you wrote a song or released a track, you could then get those rights back, which is something that exists in the US in law, but not here. And it recommended that songs get a bigger share of the streaming pie compared to recordings. And those are all big changes, and they're not in this week's announcements. But essentially, the creative body is saying, hang on a minute, this inquiry recommended this stuff that we liked, and none of it's been done. There's a quote from the Featured Artists Coalition which says, it falls significantly short of the ambition shown by Parliament and is couched in vague, non-binding language. It does not deliver the structural change required to fix the broken economics of music streaming. So essentially, the creative body is saying this is not enough. It's just tweaks around the edges. It's not going to change things. And now they're fighting. We should say there's another view, which is the label side, the BPI, the labels. They were quite unhappy with the recommendations of that report. They've been talking a lot about how this would do more damage than good. It could harm the industry's ability to invest in artists, and then that could hurt artists. So there are 2 points of view here. So I think from a label's point of view, this week is a very good compromise of stuff that will make a difference to some musicians. But the creative body is saying it's not what we wanted, it's not enough, and we're going to carry on fighting. And what they've said is they're going to fight for the stuff that wasn't included this week to be made part of law next year. Perhaps when the government is doing AI laws, they're going to fight for it to be included in that so that these changes do happen. And that's where
it does very much feel, we both sort of said this last week, that it felt like this was going to be very much a sort of interim announcement as government attempted to bring the different parties together over, the issues which you've just described, actually, like the way artists are paid in the streaming era. But this feels, I don't know, it's base camp one, this, isn't it? They've gone up the hill just a little way to base camp one, but from here on in, the hill gets steeper and steeper, and that's the arguments that are to come.
And that's it. And the one thing I'd say is people love to be rude about the government, don't they? And love to shout at ministers. But the one thing everyone here agrees on is they all praised the minister, Chris Bryant MP, who kind of banged everyone's head together to get this done. And they all said, we appreciate his efforts. We appreciate that he's tried to get something committed to. So they all agree on that. And yeah, I think it is. This is what people could agree on, and it's small compared to what has been suggested in the past. And yeah, it's going to be a big fight, I think, because, and this is the other point I wanted to raise. There's a lot going on, isn't there, at the moment? There's obviously people talking about what's happening in live, and the government's doing stuff with there. But the government is also starting to figure out what its policies on AI and regulation are. How should they regulate? And specifically, that includes if you train your AI on copyrighted music and other stuff, should you pay license? So on. And the music industry is very, very keen to all be united on that in saying what they want and saying, we want you to do this and that. We want to make sure that we get paid. So the tensions kicking over from this streaming reform, I wonder if they could start to hamper that. If everyone's kind of cross about streaming royalties still, will it harm them coming to agreement on what they want from AI? Will we see the creative bodies kicking off about AI and saying, well, actually, hang on a minute. If you want to license music to an AI company, you've got to ask the artist permission. They've got to have a veto. That's something they've been calling for. So that argument could become more, what's the word? When you kind of you sort of draw up your battle lines. So that's the worry here, I suppose, is that some of the stuff the whole music industry does want, they're going to have to be dealing with all these tensions to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We shall see. Right. Shall we skip forward to? We'll go straight to any other business, I think, because we have a pile of questions. What shall we start with? Let's go with this. This is from Mark of the band Rocketsmith, who says, "Just found your podcast and I love it. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for putting this stuff out there. It says, you mentioned in a previous episode the YouTube AI creation feature. How are they navigating training the AI? I assume it's being loaded with examples of music, in which case anyone whose music is in the LLM should benefit from revenue generated, surely. An AI without knowledge, as Mark, is just a Commodore 64. Very good. Have you got some thoughts on this, Stuart? Including just for me, can you explain what LLM is?
I thought you were going to say, what is a Commodore 64? Because I've got a good 10 minutes on that. It's a computer I grew up with. So an LLM is a large language model. Okay. So it's essentially an AI model. So ChatGPT, or the thing behind that, any AI model we talk about there is a large language model. Large language model means text. So it's the chatbots. Right. But increasingly, these things can also create images, can create videos, can create music. So yeah, essentially LLM, it is a technical term that's a meaning, but it's an AI model.
Right. Okay. So who stands to benefit? Who's going to get paid? How does it all work?
Okay. So it's a complicated question. I'll try and explain. So Google has various AI models within Google. So it has Gemini, which is kind of its chatbot helper thing. It's got Veo, which is its video generating model, and it's got a thing called Lyria, which is its AI music generator. So there's a bunch of different AI models within the Google YouTube family. And it hasn't come out and said exactly this is what we train these things on. So we've only got some reports to go on. So there was a report last month talking about how Google does use its catalog of YouTube videos to train its AIs. So it trains its AI on videos on YouTube. But it said at the time it only uses some of them. And it said there's a quote, it honors specific agreements with creators and media companies. So we don't know if it's using all the music on YouTube or not. It hasn't said, but it does say it respects rights holders. And this comes back to a couple of years ago, YouTube actually signed a deal with Universal Music Group to develop some of its AI music stuff, which involved kind of giving a group of its artists early access to tools to give feedback. And it had this quote from like UMG boss, Sir Lucian Grange, who said, it was a deal where artists and songwriters have the ability to maintain their creative integrity, their power to choose, and to be compensated fairly. So with that in mind, if YouTube was training its AIs on all the music without permission, Universal is very, very hawkish on that. You wouldn't expect it to stand for it. So that's a pointer towards YouTube doing things in a way the music industry likes. Equally, in January last year, Billboard, the trade publication, had this report, and it said that Google had trained its music model on a large set of music, including copyrighted major label recordings, and then went to show it to rights holders. So that report suggested that YouTube had built a musical AI, it trained it on music without licensing, but rather than just release that model and let people use it, it had then gone to the label and said, look what we've built, this is what it is, now how can we work together? So it's kind of a halfway house there of it didn't sign license to that front necessarily, but it has been going to labels and saying, we want to work with you. So I would say on the grounds of things, YouTube seems to be trying to walk that line well of we're going to respect rights holders and, of course, not have them sue us. But with so many AIs, it's very rare for an AI to say, here is exactly what we trained it on. So we don't know exactly. But if we take the Universal announcement for granted, the principle here is that artists whose music is used to train should benefit. Yeah. How much, how, when, those details aren't public.
Question from Bob Bright, who says, welcome back. I've missed you. We've missed you too, Bob. Just a minute. We had all this stuff in our heads and no one to share it with, so it's nice to be back. Bob says, there have been a few local festivals cancelled this year. Am I right in thinking the bands/artists are paid upfront, and conversely, if they pull out, they have to repay the fees? And I'll be brutally honest with you here, Bob, and I'm slightly embarrassed to admit this, but I thought, that can't be right, can it? Because that just sounds too complicated. But Bob, I can tell you now, yes, you are actually sort of right, because I put this question to our secret live agent, who then completely baffled me because I didn't know what an escrow account is, or even if that's the way you pronounce it. And I don't know whether that's just an average 70s comprehensive school education, or just because I'm not very, fiscally worldly wise. But an escrow, I'll give you the definition and then I'll get to answering your point, Bob. But an escrow account is a temporary legal arrangement where a trusted third party, often a bank or an escrow agent, holds funds or assets on behalf of two parties involved in a transaction. This account ensures that the payment is only released when all terms of the agreement are fulfilled, thereby reducing the risk of non-payment or fraud. Bearing that in mind, this is how our friendly agent responded to your question by saying, actually, the answer is yes. The money, the fee, the payment is held in escrow until the event has happened. If the festival doesn't happen, then contractually the agreement is often settled on a 50% cancellation fee. So the artist will get 50% of the fee despite the fact that the gig was pulled. However, our agent continues, what's been happening a bit recently, what often happens in the current climate is that the festival is in financial difficulties, so you don't receive a deposit in a timely fashion, and then the festival folds and the band ends up with all the costs like accommodation, buses and crew wages that still have to be paid even if the gig doesn't happen. And as a bonus, and he says, and they're not very happy with the agent either.
Okay.
So there you go. So in theory, you're sort of right, Bob. So the money is held ready for payment, but it's not actually in the artist's account. There may well be a clause in the contract saying that if the show doesn't go ahead, then the artist is still entitled to 50% of their fee. But obviously, as our friendly agent says, due to the problems facing festivals at the moment, which are various and many, this is it's a problematic time when it comes to festivals folding. I mean, this is something which we're actually hoping to get a guest on to talk about this, hopefully sometime in the next month. But yes, festivals folding sometimes leads to artists being left out of pocket. Especially, I think it's the upfront costs really. And I say this with some authority because I was booked for a festival a few years back in Hampshire, and I don't get any approaches from festivals. I don't know why. No sarky comments here, please. I don't get any. I don't. No one ever comes to us saying, "Do you want to play a festival?" So anyway, I thought, yeah, well, and it looked like a good festival, so I said yes. The only downside was that it was the day after the festival was the day after I was doing a 2-night stand of my one-man show at the Edinburgh Festival. But I thought that's fine. It'll be really exciting. It'll be like being on a proper tour. So anyway, I said yes. Booked flights for myself and my tour manager, tour manager. It's just my best mate Tom who points me in the right direction, and make sure I don't oversleep. But anyway, we were all set. Early flight out of Edinburgh to Southampton, all ready to go. Festival cancelled. And so I looked into booking some new flights direct back to London, but in the end, that didn't really make any financial sense. So in the end, we did the 2 nights in Edinburgh, then got up early, flew to Southampton anyway, spent an hour in the bar at Southampton, and then got a train back to London. But so yes, if you have booked the cheapest non-refundable hotels and flights, you might lose a bit of money. The artist might lose some money. I mean, at the same time, we have to say, I mean, our heart goes out to all the people who are attempting still to put on festivals, but as I say, for a variety of reasons, they're having to pull the plug, and they'll undoubtedly be disappointed and out of pocket as well.
But this is why I guess this is why you see. I guess sometimes you'll see an artist when something's been cancelled, they'll arrange a new gig of their own, won't they? A local venue, and that's not just because they're kicking their heels for a night and want something to do. It's probably because they're thinking, right, we've got the crew, we're here. Yeah, we probably need to earn some money back to cover the loss we've made for the festival. So
yeah. Anyway, Bob, hope that answers your question or confirms the fact that you already knew. This is good, right? Because this is our best pseudonym of the week. We don't often get questions set by people using pseudonyms. I'm presuming this is a pseudonym. Roy Altes from Crew, well done. Roy says, I know that when you stream a song, both the person or people who wrote the song get paid, as well as the person or label who owns the audio recording of it. So when a song gets streamed on a platform like Spotify, is the royalty payment split 50-50? Is it 50-50 between the songwriting and recording? Stuart, over to you.
Here we go. In a word, no. And this is one of the arguments we talked about earlier on. But yeah, I've got some recent stats that I can use to show this. So I've got some US stats and UK stats, and they kind of agree. So there's an organization called DEMA, which is like the trade body for the streaming services. So Spotify, Apple Music, they're its members. It published a report, and it broke down where every $100 made from a streaming service goes.
Right.
So every $100 that a streaming service makes on average, it keeps about $26.30 of it. And so $73.70 goes to rights holders. And of that, around just under 80% goes to recording and just over 20% goes to the song. So songwriters. In the UK, when we had our streaming inquiry, there's a report that actually broke down that too. And they said, yeah, but about the same. About 78% of the royalty payouts go to recordings, about 22% go to songs. So for 1 million streams, they reckon it's around £4,000 to the recording rights holders and about $1,150 to the publishing rights holders.
Okay.
But there is a twist to this. So that sounds terrible for songwriters. And this is one of the things that people are... But songwriters get a much bigger share of the royalties that go to their side than artists do of the recording royalties.
Oh, okay, right.
So according to the UK inquiry, songwriters get about 75%, so 3/4 of the money, the payout. So they get around 865 quid per million streams if they were so whoever the writers are. Whereas artists, if they're on like a 20% deal, might get 800 quid of the recordings royalties. So there's kind of a nuance here, and that there's a lot bigger share goes to recordings, but songwriters get a lot bigger share of their royalties. And the amount that gets left with the musicians at the end isn't so different, and that's the same in the US.
And that's because of the way the deals are structured. The difference between a record deal and a publishing deal. The publishing deal is weighted more favourably towards the actual artist, the writer.
Yeah. So in the US, out of that $100 spent on a streaming service, on average, around about $9.23 ends up with the artists, and around $8.24 ends up with the songwriters. Right. And of course, all of this is subject to individually what deal you're on, how many of you are there. If you're the sole songwriter of an Ed Sheeran hit, you're doing well. You're sing a lot of money. If you're one of 17 songwriters on something else, so it on an individual level, there's no set figure, but yeah, about 80-20 recordings to songs.
There you go. Thank you very much for that one. And can we fit one more in, I think? Shall we do Alan's question? Thank you, Alan. Alan said this is a good discussion, I think, which I think you'll prompt here, Alan. Says, have either of you read Liz Pelly's book, Mood Machine, The Rise of Spotify and the Cost of the Perfect Playlist? She's clearly not a Spotify fan, and I think it's a quite one-sided book. That said, there's some interesting insights on how Spotify creates playlists and also encourages labels to take a lower royalty in return for promotion. I think it's significant that apparently none of the major labels have taken advantage of this. It's just the independents. Do you think this is payola? That's quite low. I've not read the book. I've seen it talked about, but haven't had a chance to actually read it myself. So I don't know what claims it makes, or whether we'd get in trouble for repeating them. Have you come across it? Have you read any of it? Do you know what it alleges, Stuart?
Yeah. Well, I followed her work for a while. Actually, she probably is the journalist who has been the most critical of Spotify for the longest time.
Right. Okay.
Both in terms of what it does, but also she talks about its impact on music and culture. Like she's very, very, very critical. And she has a very strong point of opinion, to Alan's point, but she's also a good journalist. Like she does the legwork. Like her book is about the research she's done, the people she's talked to. So it's not just someone sitting at a keyboard going, I don't like Spotify. Like right. She's a critical voice, but someone who does the research to kind of to try and back up a case. And yeah, the book distills all that. So the book is about how Spotify deals with playlists. It's about one of the things that got lots of press is whether it commissions background style music to put in its playlists. And that made lots of headlines. And she talks about this thing that Alan refers to about discovery mode, which is not a secret thing. It's one of Spotify's marketing tools that I can explain. So yeah, I got this thing. So I've written about Spotify since they started, and I've written about the good stuff, all the bad stuff, and the fights. And I think it's really important that you have these voices. You have voices that are very firmly pro Spotify industry, and you have journalists like Liz, who is very much coming at it, saying, "I'm going to prove these evil bastards are evil." And I think all these opinions, like I think journalism, it's important to have those critical voices. So yeah, I'm a fan of her stuff, even though I haven't always agreed with bits of it, or I might have a different take on it sometimes. But yeah, it's a book worth reading if you're interested in Spotify. But as
So
for payola,
tell us about the what the point that's been raised here, and I'm interested to know about discovery mode, and I'm interested to know about labels being offered lower royalty rates for inclusion in playlists.
yeah, and this is you can Google Spotify discovery mode. There's a page about it on the website, and all of what I'm about to say is said there. So it's not a secret thing. It's the first thing to say. So yeah, basically it's a promotional feature. So if you're an artist or label, you can say to Spotify, right, I've got this track, I want to promote it. It might be a new song, it might be a catalog track. And what happens then is Spotify will tell its algorithm, this is not a technical term, it will give its algorithm a good talk to, and say, look, we want this song is going to get a bit more weight in 3 specific places on Spotify. So it's in its mixes, so like the personal mixes for you, in its radio feature, because there's a radio style feature on Spotify we play, and in autoplay, which is when if you play a playlist on Spotify, if you have this turned on, when it gets to the end, it just carries on playing stuff that's similar to that playlist. It's called autoplay. So you can say, right, I want to use discovery mode for this track, and it will have a bigger chance of appearing in those 3 places for people who the algorithm thinks will like your song. So it's not like if you're an indie band, you're getting shoved into the ears of Drake listeners and vice versa. And the pitch is you don't pay to do this. You don't pay Spotify money, but it charges a commission on the royalties from the streams of those tracks in those places. It takes a 30% cut. So essentially, you take a 30% cut in the royalties from any streams that come from using discovery mode. And the argument is, but you will reach people who don't know about you but would like you, and they may then save your track or follow you or add you to their playlists. And in the long term, you will make more money than you have given up.
Right.
And there's a whole section on Spotify of case studies of how artists used it. And one of the arguments it makes, which kind of goes back to Alan's point, is Spotify says this is a thing that works for independent artists because you don't need money up front to use it. So it's not like another feature where you might have to need a major label marketing budget to pay them to do something. It's like you could just opt into this, the money comes out, the royalties, but you'll earn back. And that is their argument. But as Alan notes, it has been criticized. Like some industry bodies have said they don't like it. It's kind of in the US, this term payola has huge historical resonance, doesn't it?
Yes,
it's about the DJs being paid to play songs and no one knew, and so essentially bribes. And this is a huge thing. So it's true. This has been a controversial vision. Not everyone likes the idea. Some labels choose not to use it because they don't like it. Others do. And I've kind of, I don't know. Well, I'd like to hear your feelings. I've got mixed feelings about it as a listener because I kind of like in today's internet. I'd rather know when something's an ad or sponsored or being paid for. Like if I'm reading an article and it's an advertorial, I want to know it's an advertorial. And there are quite clear rules, aren't there? You have to say this is an ad. Even on social media, if you're an influencer promoting some old shit, from on your Instagram, you have to say this is an ad. I've been paid to do this, and you get in trouble if you don't. And discovery mode is this weird grey area because it's a promotional thing, but there's no way at the moment of Spotify saying this song you're listening to right now, or the song I'm about to play you, is being promoted through our discovery mode. Like that wouldn't. So I do feel a bit. I'm interested to see how people view this and whether they mind, because in theory it's a band who I should like giving up some royalties to reach me if I haven't heard them before. I'm not really against that if they're in control, which they are. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, for a start, how well can the algorithm read your mind? I mean, how how successful is this going to be? Are these groups who are taking the royalty rate cut, are they the sort of groups you would like? How dependable is the algorithm? That's my first point, because even though because we are, I don't know. I mean, I'm quite it will surprise people to know this, but I'm quite picky about music that I like, and I get quite annoyed when algorithms throw up things that you think plainly you can't see the subtlety, the difference in track X, which I really like, and this nonsense, which you obviously have put before us. So that's and I suppose, and from this, and I don't know anyone. I mean, if anyone listening has attempted this or has gone for this discovery mode option, I'd love to know whether it was successful, because will it work? If it does work, well, maybe there is an argument for it being, particularly for people who don't have a lot of money to promote themselves with. Maybe you can understand why this would be tempting. But if it doesn't work, it's just another part of the music industry which has been created to effectively, and I know they're not charging them up front, but they're still charging the artists. They just found another way of charging, young, naive, hopeful artists some payback, some money to try and get to more people.
I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? Yeah,
that feels uncomfortable.
Well, it's one of those things, isn't it, where if everyone did it, everyone's getting low royalties, and arguably no one's getting boosted because you're all doing it. But that's not. But I mean, it's interesting. So it is notable actually on their website. And again, anyone can Google Spotify Discovery Mode and see everything there. They've got all these case studies, and they're all basically independent artists, and that's the thrust of this. Their argument is like, this is who it's for. And they have stats about, in the first month after using this, the average uplift in how many people save your song, add you to their playlists, follow you, is this. So they have been putting figures out there saying this does work. Of course, it'd be interesting, like you say, to hear from people who've used it and have a different experience, because they won't be on the case study section.
It won't work. It won't work for everybody, though, will it? That I don't think. No. Surely it won't. I mean, if I was to try it, I'd be the one artist for whom it wouldn't work. But they're hardly likely to amplify the voices of the disgruntled, are they? Spotify.
Well, yeah, but it's one of those things, I think, where so much is marketing nowadays, isn't it? like in a way, I suppose the one thing about every streaming, so to take this away from Spotify, every streaming service, they all have these discovery algorithms. They're all trying to understand our music habits. And they're all trying to serve us stuff that we would like. And one of the things that I have been picking up on is that independent music is doing pretty well from this. Like, I think it was half Spotify's payouts last year. And this is one thing where, moving away from the stuff you pay for, marketing budgets, these algorithms don't really differentiate between major and independent artists. What they're trying to do is find the stuff that you, Steve Lamacq, or me, Stuart, would like. And that seems to be quite positive for independent artists. Now, there's all those debates about how much they get paid and is it money enough and so on. But in a way, these services have given independent artists more of a level playing field to reach people who would like them. And like you say, when you get into the whole point of like, well, a lower royalty cut or paying for promotion, it does make people go, I'm not sure about this. And so, I think that's the most I can say, is that there has been debate about this feature, and Spotify has defended it, and it could have got rid of it quietly. It could have just said, we're not going to do it anymore. It's too much hassle. Because like in the US, politicians have written letters to Spotify saying, explain this to us and why it's not payola. Like they've got some flack there. But they've kept on with it, and they say it's working well for the people who use it. So it's one of those that's up in the air, I think.
Yeah, I suppose the strange thing for me, and this is one of the chief differences, isn't it, between the era we live in now with the rise of the influence of the streaming services in bringing music to people and influencing their taste, is algorithms, rather than somebody, rather than in radio. You don't you're not paying for somebody to put your music in front of people. It's a person who's thought, this is a good band that I think my listeners will like, and playing it. So that is a different curation, isn't it? You've got the human curation of radio, and you've got the algorithm. But it does sound like an interesting book. Which
it's worth. It's worth reading, even if you think you're going to disagree with it violently. But I think people should be reading, the most critical views and the most pro views, and that's how you get a sense of what you think about stuff. So I recommend reading that and all the other Spotify books.
Okay, we're out of time for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If you are enjoying what we're trying to do, please do spread the word. Tell your friends, post us a message online somewhere, leave us a review, in fact, online. Help us take on those pesky gods of the algorithm. Alternatively, you can support us via Patreon. In fact, if you sign up to be a super fan, you get an extra 15, 20 minutes or so of us pontificating over various music-related matters, which the lock-in last week ended with me admitting to once having been a member of the Sheena Easton fan club. So goodness knows what evil will follow this week. But if you'd like to join us and support what we're doing, you can sign up to become a super fan of the show at patreon.com/thepriceofmusic. And otherwise, we'd love to hear from you. More questions, please. You can drop us a line with questions or feedback around the show. The email address is thepriceofmusicpodcast@gmail.com. We'll get around to answering some more questions in the coming weeks. Thepriceofmusicpodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, take care of yourselves. Bye for now.